You know that moment when someone tells you they love you, and instead of feeling complete, you feel more alone than ever? That strange emptiness that washes over you when you realize the person looking into your eyes isn't really seeing you at all, but something they've constructed, something they need you to be. It's like standing in a room full of mirrors, each one reflecting a different version of yourself, none of them quite right, none of them really you. If you've ever felt this way, if you've ever wondered why love sometimes feels like the loneliest place on earth, you're not broken. You're not asking for too much. You're simply beginning to understand one of the most profound and painful truths about human connection that Joseph Campbell spent his life exploring through the myths and stories of every culture on Earth. What Campbell discovered in his decades of studying comparative mythology wasn't just academic knowledge about ancient stories. He uncovered something that cuts to the very heart of why we struggle so deeply in our relationships, why we often feel more isolated when we're supposedly loved, and why authentic connection seems so rare and precious. The truth is that most of what we call love isn't love at all. It's projection. It's the human mind's desperate attempt to find in another person what it believes it lacks, to see in someone else the missing pieces of its own incomplete puzzle. Think about it for a moment. When someone says they love you, what exactly are they loving? Are they loving the way you stumble over words when you're nervous, the way you doubt yourself at 3 a.m, the parts of you that you consider ugly or shameful? Or are they loving the version of you that makes them feel safe, attractive, worthy, complete, the version that fits into the story they need to tell themselves about who they are and what their life means? This isn't a criticism of love or relationships. It's simply the recognition of how the human psyche operates. Campbell understood that we all carry within us what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious, a vast repository of archetypal images and patterns that shape how we see the world and the people in it. When we encounter another person, we don't see them as they truly are. We see them through the lens of these internal patterns, these unconscious templates that tell us who people should be and what they should provide for us. The beloved becomes the anima or animus, the projected ideal of the opposite sex. The friend becomes the wise mentor or the loyal companion from the hero's journey. The family member becomes the great mother or the stern father of our mythological inheritance. We cast people in roles from the ancient stories that live in our bones, and then we convince ourselves that we love them, when what we really love is the character we've assigned them to play. And here's where it gets even more complex. The person being loved, the one receiving all this projected affection, often finds themselves in an impossible position. They begin to sense that they're being loved for something they're not, something they can never fully be. They feel the pressure to maintain a performance, to keep being the person their loved one sees, even when that person feels foreign to their own experience of themselves. Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt like you were slowly disappearing, where the more someone claimed to love you, the less you recognized yourself? This is what happens when we become the screen for someone else's projections. We start to lose touch with our authentic self because we're so busy being what others need us to be. We become trapped in the roles others have written for us, and the tragedy is that these roles, no matter how positive they seem, are still cages. Campbell would say that this is one of the fundamental challenges of the hero's journey. The hero must learn to distinguish between who they really are and who others need them to be. They must develop the courage to be authentic even when authenticity disappoints those who have projected their needs and fantasies onto them. This is perhaps one of the loneliest and most difficult passages in human development, because it often means losing the false love that comes from playing a role in order to find the possibility of real love that comes from being genuinely known. And before we continue, I want to pause here because I know many of you are recognizing your own story in what we're talking about. Maybe you're there, listening to this, and for the first time feeling that someone really understands what you've been going through. So I want to ask you a very direct question. What was the moment you realized you were living someone else's life? That specific instant when you looked in the mirror and didn't recognize who was there. I know this might hurt a little to talk about, but your experience could be exactly what another person needs to hear today to feel less alone. If you feel comfortable sharing, write in the comments. It was when I realized that. You don't need to tell everything, just that moment of recognition. Because when you share your truth here, you're literally illuminating the path for someone who's still lost in darkness. Your courage in being vulnerable could be the first step in another person's transformation journey. Now, you might be thinking that this sounds incredibly pessimistic, that if all love is projection, then genuine connection is impossible. But Campbell would argue the opposite. Understanding projection isn't the end of love, it's the beginning of real love. When we recognize that what we call love is often just our own psychological material being reflected back to us, we create the possibility for something much deeper and more authentic. Real love, according to the wisdom Campbell found in the world's mythologies, begins when we can see another person without the filter of our needs, our expectations, our unconscious demands that they complete us or heal us or make us feel worthy. It begins when we can love someone not for what they do for us, but for who they actually are, including the parts of them that don't serve our psychological agenda. This kind of love requires what Campbell called the transcendence of the ego. It requires us to stop making other people responsible for our wholeness and to find that wholeness within ourselves. Only when we're complete unto ourselves can we truly see another person clearly, without the distortion of projection. Only then can we love them for who they are, rather than for who we need them to be. But here's the beautiful paradox that Campbell discovered in myth after myth around the world. The very process of recognizing projection, of seeing through our own unconscious patterns, is itself a form of awakening. When we realize that we've been loving our own psychological material rather than the actual person in front of us, we're forced to ask deeper questions. Who is this person really? What do they actually need? What would it mean to love them for who they are, rather than for what they can do for me? This recognition is often painful, because it means giving up the fantasy that another person can complete us, can fill the empty spaces inside us, can be the answer to our existential loneliness. It means accepting that we are responsible for our own wholeness, our own healing, our own sense of meaning and purpose. But it also opens up the possibility for relationships that are based on genuine intimacy rather than unconscious neediness. Campbell often spoke about the difference between marriage and love affairs. He said that love affairs are often based on projection, on the fantasy that this other person embodies everything we've been looking for. But marriage, real marriage, begins when the projections fall away and we're left with the actual person, flaws and all. The question then becomes, can we love this real person, not the fantasy version we projected onto them? This doesn't just apply to romantic relationships, it applies to all our connections with other people. How often do we project onto our friends the role of the perfect companion, the one who should always understand us and support us? How often do we project onto our parents the role of the perfect nurturer or provider, and then resent them when they fall short of our unconscious expectations? How often do we project onto our children the role of fulfilling our unlived dreams, and then wonder why they seem to resist our love? The hero's journey that Campbell mapped out is fundamentally about learning to withdraw these projections, to take responsibility for our own psychological material instead of unconsciously depositing it onto other people. This withdrawal of projections is what he called the return, the final stage of the hero's journey, where the hero comes back to ordinary life but with a transformed understanding of how to live and love. When we stop projecting our unconscious material onto others, something remarkable happens. We begin to see them as they actually are, in all their complexity and humanity. We begin to appreciate their unique gifts and struggles without needing them to be anything other than themselves. We discover that real people are far more interesting than our projections ever were. Think about the most profound connections in your life. Weren't they the relationships where someone saw you clearly without trying to make you into something you weren't? Weren't they the connections where you felt free to be authentic, where your quirks and imperfections were accepted rather than corrected? This is what becomes possible when we move beyond projection into genuine seeing. But withdrawing projections isn't just about improving our relationships with others. It's about reclaiming the parts of ourselves that we've unconsciously given away. When we project our power onto others, making them responsible for our happiness or our sense of worth, we become powerless. When we withdraw those projections, we reclaim our own agency, our own capacity to create meaning and joy in our lives. Campbell found this pattern repeated again and again in the world's mythologies. The hero must learn to stop looking outside themselves for salvation, for completion, for the answer to their deepest longings. They must turn inward and discover that everything they've been seeking in others already exists within them. This doesn't mean becoming isolated or disconnected. It means becoming so whole and complete within yourself that your connections with others are based on choice rather than neediness, on appreciation rather than expectation. This is perhaps why authentic love is so rare and so precious. It requires two people who have done the inner work of becoming whole, who can see each other clearly without the fog of projection. It requires the courage to be vulnerable without being needy, to be intimate without being possessive, to care deeply without trying to control. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you is asking for change, a deeper understanding of who you really are. And I want to invite you on a journey that can completely transform how you see your own story. When you subscribe to this channel, you're not just pressing a button, you're saying yes to a more conscious and awakened version of yourself. Every week, I bring here reflections, insights, and practical tools that can help you reconnect with your true purpose, find meaning in the challenges you face, and discover the extraordinary strength that already exists within you. It's not about becoming a different person, it's about remembering who you always were. If this resonates with you, if you feel this could be the moment to begin this transformation, click the subscribe button. You deserve a life with more clarity, purpose, and inner peace. And I'm here to walk alongside you in this discovery. So how do we begin this process of withdrawing projections and learning to love authentically? Campbell would say it starts with radical self-awareness, with becoming conscious of the stories we tell ourselves about other people, and recognizing that these stories say more about us than about them. It starts with asking ourselves hard questions about what we really want from our relationships and whether we're trying to get from others what we should be giving to ourselves. One of the most powerful practices Campbell recommended was what he called following your bliss, which is often misunderstood as simply doing whatever feels good. But what Campbell actually meant was finding your own authentic path, your own unique way of expressing your deepest nature, independent of what others expect from you or want you to be. When you're following your own authentic path, you're less likely to project your unlived dreams onto others because you're actively living them yourself. This practice of authentic living is terrifying for most people because it means potentially disappointing those who have grown comfortable with the projected version of you. It means risking the loss of false love in order to make space for real love. It means accepting that some relationships might not survive your commitment to authenticity, but trusting that the relationships that do survive will be far deeper and more meaningful than anything you've experienced before. Campbell also emphasized the importance of understanding the archetypal patterns that operate in our unconscious. When we can recognize that we're seeing someone as the great mother or the wise old man or the eternal youth, we can step back and ask ourselves what we're actually responding to. Are we responding to this person's actual qualities, or are we responding to an ancient pattern that lives in our psyche? This doesn't mean that archetypal energy isn't real or important. Campbell believed that archetypes are fundamental organizing principles of human experience. But problems arise when we confuse the archetypal energy someone carries with who they actually are as a person. A woman might carry the energy of the great mother archetype, but she's also a unique individual with her own dreams, fears, and limitations. A man might embody the wise old man archetype in certain moments, but he also has his own vulnerabilities and blind spots. Learning to separate the archetypal energy from the person who carries it is one of the most sophisticated skills in human relationship. It allows us to appreciate the archetypal gifts someone brings while also seeing and loving them as a complete human being. It prevents us from putting people on pedestals that they're bound to fall from, and it protects us from the disappointment that comes when our projections don't match reality. The journey from projection to authentic love is not a linear process. It's something we must practice again and again, relationship by relationship, interaction by interaction. Each time we catch ourselves projecting our needs or expectations onto someone else, each time we choose to see them as they actually are rather than as we need them to be, we take another step along the hero's path. And here's what Campbell discovered that might surprise you. When we stop trying to get from others what we think we need, when we stop making them responsible for our happiness and completeness, we often find that we receive far more than we ever imagined. Not because we're manipulating the situation, but because authentic love is naturally generous. When people feel truly seen and accepted for who they are, they naturally want to give their best. When they're not constantly defending against our projections and expectations, they have energy available for genuine care and connection. This shift from projective love to authentic love changes everything. It changes how we parent our children, allowing them to be who they actually are rather than who we think they should be. It changes how we relate to our partners, creating space for them to grow and change without threatening our sense of security. It changes how we interact with friends, colleagues, even strangers, because we're no longer unconsciously trying to get something from them. Perhaps most importantly, it changes our relationship with ourselves. When we stop looking to others to complete us, we must face the work of becoming whole on our own. This can feel overwhelming at first, but Campbell found that every mythology contains the same promise. Everything we need for this journey of wholeness already exists within us. We don't need to become something we're not. We need to remember something we've forgotten. The ultimate goal isn't to eliminate all projection forever. That's probably impossible as long as we're human. The goal is to become conscious of our projections, to recognize them when they arise, and to take responsibility for withdrawing them instead of making others carry the weight of our unconscious material. The goal is to love from wholeness rather than from neediness, to connect from strength rather than from desperation. When you understand that people don't love you, they love what they project onto you, it's not a reason to become cynical about love. It's an invitation to something far more beautiful, the possibility of being truly known and loved for who you actually are. It's an invitation to stop performing roles that others have written for you and to start living from your authentic center. It's an invitation to join the ranks of those rare souls who have learned to love without possession, to care without control, to connect without losing themselves. This understanding transforms how we navigate every relationship in our lives. When someone seems to love us, we can enjoy their affection while recognizing that part of what they love might be their own projection. We don't have to take responsibility for maintaining their fantasy, but we also don't have to destroy it cruelly. We can simply be ourselves and trust that those who are meant to love us for who we are will stay, while those who only love their projection of us will naturally move on to find someone else to carry their unconscious material. And when we find ourselves projecting onto others, we can catch ourselves in the act and ask what this projection is trying to tell us about ourselves. What quality are we looking for in this other person that we need to develop in ourselves? What wound are we hoping they will heal that only we can heal? What dream are we expecting them to fulfill that only we can make real? The hero's journey that Campbell mapped out is ultimately a journey home. Home to ourselves, home to our authentic nature, home to the capacity for real love that exists when we're no longer desperately seeking completion outside ourselves. This journey requires courage because it means facing our own incompleteness, our own shadows, our own responsibility for creating the life we want to live. But the reward for this courage is immense. It's the reward of genuine intimacy, of being known and loved for who you actually are. It's the reward of relationships that enhance your authenticity rather than requiring you to hide it. It's the reward of contributing to others' lives, not from your neediness, but from your fullness. Not from what you lack, but from what you have discovered within yourself. If this video is resonating with something deep within you, if it's making you see your own journey in a new light, leave a like so more people can discover these extraordinary connections. Because somewhere out there, someone is desperately trying to understand why love feels so lonely, why connection seems so difficult, why they feel more isolated when they're supposedly loved than when they're alone. Your engagement with this content helps it reach them, helps them realize that their experience is not unique, that there's a path forward, that authentic love is not just a fantasy, but a real possibility for those willing to do the inner work. The path Campbell revealed through his study of mythology is not easy, but it's the only path that leads to genuine freedom and authentic love. It's the path of taking responsibility for your own wholeness, of withdrawing your projections from others and doing the work of becoming complete within yourself. It's the path of learning to see others clearly, without the filter of your own needs and expectations, and discovering that real people are far more interesting and worthy of love than any fantasy could ever be. This is the great gift of understanding projection. Not the cynical realization that love is an illusion, but the beautiful recognition that real love is possible once we stop confusing our own psychological material with the people we encounter. Once we learn to love from wholeness rather than from need, from clarity rather than from projection, from authentic seeing rather than from unconscious fantasy. The journey continues, one relationship at a time, one moment of awareness at a time, one choice at a time, to see clearly rather than project blindly. This is how we move from being characters in other people's stories to becoming the authors of our own authentic lives. This is how we transform from seekers of love into sources of love, from those who need completion to those who offer it from their own overflowing wholeness.